Right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. No, it's not the end of the show. It's not that short, but welcome to Tuesdays with Gurus. I'm Robert D. Hamilton.
And I'm Mark Graham.
And this week we're actually getting filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah. It's nice, isn't it?
Which is very good. So we have to be on the ball today. Now, in this week's show, we're going to be talking to you about how you can actually perhaps decrease your sales and increase your profits, which is not my area of expertise. This is Mark's area. So Mark's going to be doing most of the talking this week.
Yeah, with a sore throat as well, so
yes.
Bear with me if
I've
my
made him
voice
do
goes.
the talking this week while he's not very well.
I've got a bad chest, great. Yeah, what we're really talking about is how you have to make sure you have effective sales in your business. So a lot of businesses focus on turnover alone and volume of transactions. And the facts state that actually most businesses fail due to cash flow and not because of a lack of sales. So it's not normally because they're struggling with sales, it's the fact they don't have effective sales or don't plan around the cash flow of what the costs mean of those. So what we're really saying is, yes, of course, sales is the most important thing in any business. I think everybody knows that that's the most important thing. So, without sales, you won't have any budget for marketing, you won't have any back-end need for finance and things like that.
Well, without sales, you're not even going to have any customers.
Exactly. So you don't have a business without sales. So we're not saying, that you don't have to focus on sales in your business. Of course you do. But what you have to do is you should really know what those sales mean to your business. So from a financial point of view, you need to know what costs are associated with those sales, and you have to know if those sales are actually profitable. The only exception is sometimes you may obviously decide to have a customer, you might do some sales at a loss, because overall with that customer you're actually going to make a profit. I understand you have to sometimes give customers special deals and things like that to keep the overall account alive, but it's really about the fact that you can sometimes actually not having a customer is a good thing for a business. So I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine in the UK has a haulage firm. Now, for those of you that don't know, the fuel prices in the UK have gone through the roof. And it's now
skyrocketed.
Yeah, skyrocketed.
Last
So
5 years.
it's become a very competitive industry, very difficult to run a business in that industry. And they've been really facing a price war to try and balance that. Now, I spoke to him on several occasions about the business, how's it going, things like that, and he kept having a gut feeling that their number one customer, the person that spent the most money with them, was actually causing them, a lot of problems. They were working longer hours and not really making money on that customer. So I said to him, I just asked him a question, and I said, well, what would it mean to your business if you didn't have that customer any longer? And what does it mean if you continue with that customer? Now, the point is he couldn't answer me, because he didn't have the information available to actually tell him what that customer meant. So I spent a few days in their office. We actually went through the information and actually looked at some plans of what if that customer, that business was not there any longer. Excuse me, throat's going. So what they found was actually that once they worked that out, they realized that they weren't making any money from that customer. So they're putting all this time in, all this effort in, having extra fleets, things like that, and they actually weren't making any money on that customer. So they took a decision to stop working for that customer. Well, they did give them an option to pay them more. If they pay them more, then they would work for that customer. They declined, so they actually stopped working for that customer. Now, their sales reduced, obviously, from that. Their turnover went down, quite a lot for a couple of months, but they actually found that they made more profit in those months. Not only that, they had a lot more time to actually go out and find new business, which was actually better business for them. So by reducing those sales, they actually ended up growing their business and actually becoming more profitable from that.
So on what basis then? How do they find out whether or not? Because they can't just go out and chop the customers off their order list, or
no, and you don't go out just saying, oh, less sales is better. That's not the case, but you really have to.
How do they find out then whether or not those certain customers are costing them more, or
it's all down to information,
profitable?
And that's what I always talk about is key financial information. So you should know what costs are associated to that particular sale and that particular customer. So once they allocated those costs and worked out what it would be with and without them, two scenarios, they were able to see that they weren't making any money on that customer. So you should really look at what staff are going into those customers, what time you're spending on those customers. You know, the other thing is, are they slow payers? Are they even not going to pay you at all? Because, you know, as we know, bad debt is one of the biggest reasons for business failure as well. So it's really allocating those costs and understanding what that customer means and what those sales actually mean to your business.
Okay, so for example then, they could take that one stage further, couldn't they? And they could actually analyse their marketing strategies.
Yep.
And then they could find out which marketing strategy is producing
Exactly.
the most sales and the most profits.
Exactly. You have to capture the data in your business from the start right the way through, and you have to monitor that. You should be monitoring your costs and also the performance. So, like you say, is that advert working for you?
Yeah.
You know, are the sales that have allocated to that advert worth doing the advert? Also, is a product working for you? Quite often businesses will be making an overall net profit and they're
Right.
making sales, so they think they're okay. But they might be doing 3 different products. And actually, if they realised and stopped doing one of those products, that one product might be losing them money.
And how, in what way can a product lose money? If it's their best sellers, for example.
Yeah, well, it might be that the price margin isn't right on that product, so it might be
Okay.
selling very well because it's very cheap, but actually the cost of producing that product and the fixed costs associated with it might actually, you know, outweigh the sales.
Outweigh the profit margin.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And also,
Excellent.
sometimes you've got to be very careful when you're rapidly increasing your business, because quite often what happens is when you do that, especially if you've got products, you have to buy those products in first. You have to pay for those products before those customers pay for you.
Or you have to pay for the manufacturing if you're producing
Yeah,
them
and
yourself.
normally you have to pay that up front. The customers might have 60, 90 days credit with you.
Yeah.
So if they don't pay you, then you know that cash flow is a real problem. So you really have to have contingencies, particularly when you're growing your business and your sales. So it comes back to the whole point of information. You have to really know your business,
Yeah.
and you have to really plan and understand what that means to you, even if you get those sales. It's not as simple, as entrepreneurs in particular, it's all about getting sales, getting turnover, and as long as you're doing that, you think you're growing and doing well. Another thing people do is, and I don't know if it's an ego thing maybe, you probably know more from a mindset point of view, people seem to think that if they're growing staff numbers, if they've got the best offices, if they're doing all these things, that means their business is doing well. But actually, if those fixed assets aren't working for you, so if by having a nice office that isn't generating more sales, then that is a cost that you don't need in your business.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at that chap we had on one of our boot camps.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
example, you know, and you told him he had a a really plush office, didn't he? A 10th story.
Yep.
Very, very expensive area.
$100,000 a year.
$100,000 a year he was spending, and Mark asked him, well, how many people do you see at your office? How much money is that office generating? And it was nobody. He had nobody going to his office.
Yeah, he had 2 people, I think, come to his office, but they didn't actually generate sales anyway.
Yeah.
So after our boot camp, he actually decided to relocate offices, a much cheaper one, and it didn't affect his sales at all. So straight away, he saved $100,000 in his business, and that was really a mindset issue with him, where
Yeah.
he felt he needed that, you know, that prestige, if you like, in his company would help him make sales. But in actual fact, it wasn't doing that.
So how can you summarise then for the viewers? How can you just summarise what we've spoke about so that they could perhaps even reduce the sales and not to be worried about that, not to be concerned because they might have more.
Yeah, well,
they might have more profits in the business.
The first thing is, quite often, a lot of your small customers, maybe the bottom 5% of your customers, actually cause you the most work and the most problems. The message really is, don't be scared to say no to those customers. Don't be scared to turn away business if that business is not working for you. Obviously, make sure you make the time to then get new business in. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, especially with big customers, sometimes can have a lot of buying power over you. Just make sure that you're strong enough that if that price does not work for your business, then you're better off not doing it, because all you're going to do is delay more problems. So you've really got to be strong and really work out whether it's profitable or not. If it's not profitable, don't do it.
Okay.
That's really the message.
All right, excellent. So we hope you enjoy the show. This week we were going to have, remember, Phil Edmondson on, and unfortunately he couldn't make it. He wasn't too well today, and we do this live every Tuesday. It's not recorded on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So he couldn't make it, but we do hope to get him on in the future. And we're going to have other people, other guest speakers coming on
Definitely,
as well.
yeah.
So it's not just going to be just always our two ugly faces that you're looking
No.
at.
And you will get different points of view as well.
Yeah, different points of view and a different voice on business as well.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoyed this week's show from Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. We'd like to say goodbye and thank you to the audience as well.
Yes, thank you, audience.
Here's another nice mess you've got me into. You ready?
That related to those sales.